A charred ranch cost $5. Its seller held a silent Apache girl and a pact of shared quiet. The deed said $5 and carried the smell of lamp oil and old regret. Eli Mercer folded it twice, slid it into a breast pocket still dusted from the last job, and let his borrowed horse pick a slow path across scorched pasture. The ranch had burned 3 months earlier. Lightning or feud, folk argued. All that remained now were timbers black as midnight ribs and a stone chimney pointing at heaven like a blame. Late afternoon sun laid copper over ash. Wind sifted charcoal into small drifts that whispered when he stepped through. He tied the horse to a sagging corral post, laid a hand on the beam. Wood flaked beneath calloused fingers, years of life reduced to silk-soft ruin. The quiet felt thick, not empty, as though something still breathed under all that gray. Eli swung a pry bar, lifted the warped kitchen door off its hinges. Inside, floorboards warped, nails glinting like stray fangs. Broken plates littered the hearth. A pot hung half-melted from a truss where the roof had collapsed. Above, daylight gaped through rafter skeletons. Below, a black square marked the cellar hatch, frame charred but intact. He knelt, tested the ring. Hinges groaned, soot puffed upward. Stale air rolled out, carrying the faint tang of earth and something warmer than dirt, like breath held too long. He lowered the bar, eased the hatch open a foot. "Anyone down there?" Voice came rough, unused, uncertain. Silence replied, but a scrape followed, soft, deliberate. Eli swung the door wide. A wooden ladder, half burned, led into shadow. He struck a match. Flame guttered, steadying against a small draft. Air moving from something living. Halfway down, boards creaked. At the packed earth floor, he touched boot to ground, lifted the match. She stood at the far wall, young, maybe 19, soot streaked across umber skin, braid frayed at the ends, buckskin leggings ripped at one knee, rawhide vest singed but intact. In her right hand a hunting knife, in her left a piece of broken china, edge sharpened by fire. Dark eyes fixed on the stranger who had cracked her silence. No fear, just measuring. Eli raised the match higher. Shadows leapt like startled birds. Between them lay a pallet of old sacks, 2 empty canning jars, a battered kettle, and a tiny fire pit of brick shards. Embers still pulsing the faintest red. She had been living down here, beneath ruin, feeding on whatever the fire spared. He blew out the match, dark again, but he felt her gaze. Hand empty, he unbuckled the canteen from his belt, knelt, rolled it across dirt until it touched her boot. Metal hissed against hot ash. She watched, knife steady, then bent, uncapped the canteen, sniffed. Water. She drank one careful swallow, eyes never leaving him, then wiped her mouth with the back of her wrist. "Name's Eli," he said, voice low so it wouldn't echo like threat. She offered nothing back, only shifted weight to her left foot, the blade lowering a fraction. From above, wind rattled the ruined roof. A sheet of charred tin clanged somewhere. The sound of a bell rung for ghosts. Eli pointed upward. "Roof won't keep the night chill," he murmured. "Cellar's safer, but smoke's thin. Need fresh air." No answer, but her shoulders eased a breath. He climbed out, returned with his bedroll and a small sack of beans saved for the trail. Lowered both, then descended again. Beans he set near her pallet. Bedroll he unrolled opposite wall. Distance, not gate. Flame kindled from the embers with a twist of straw. Orange washed the cellar, turning her knife's edge amber. She sheathed it, gesture slow, deliberate, then slid the broken china shard into her belt. He stirred beans into the kettle, added a palm of salt. Steam rose, scent of life sneaking through smoke. When the stew thickened, he filled 2 tin cups, pushed one across the floor. She tasted, blinked at heat, swallowed 4 deliberate bites, then placed the cup halfway back, line drawn and respected. Night settled. Through the hatch gap, thin stars pricked burned rafters. Warmth built, wood popped. Eli laid on his side, hat pulled low, listening to her breath steady, then lengthen. Before sleep found him, He heard cloth rustle, her pallet dragged 3 inches closer to the fire. Dawn bled pale over the ruins. He woke to find her crouched at ladder's base, watching sunrise collect on charred beams. A long slice of light climbed her arm, found the bruise at her elbow, painted it gold. She touched the bruise once, surprised maybe it still hurt, then glanced at him. Eli rose, stretched. "Need a name," he said half to himself. She hesitated, then tapped her chest. "Tala." Voice husky, unused, yet sure. Apache for wolf, he thought, or stalking. Fitting either way. He nodded, rolled beans into a fresh leaf, handed her breakfast. When she finished, she stood, knife sheathed, and pointed to the ladder, ready to face upstairs daylight. They emerged into bright silence. Ash dusted their boots. Crows perched on the chimney, tilting curious heads, then took flight all at once, scattering black across blue. Tala stepped to the edge of the porchless threshold, eyes sweeping the empty fields, the sagging barn, the burned fence line. Eli watched her inhale, first full breath above ground, in who knew how many cycles of sun and moon. Smoke still lingered in the timbers, but air tasted of mesquite bloom beyond the ridge. He picked up a hammer left by the previous owner, tested its weight. She squatted, sifted soil until she found a corn kernel charred on one side, but whole on the other. She held it out, half-burned seed glinting. He understood. Something could grow here yet. Together they surveyed ruin, not as cemetery, but as blueprint. Wind curled through gaps, carrying the quiet they would now have to share. Two voices learning to speak through the work of raising walls from cinders. Above them the chimney stood, single sentinel over ash, waiting for smoke that meant supper instead of noon heat pressed down like a hand on coals. Eli hauled the last bucket from the creek, water sloshing brown gold, and poured it through burlap over a rusted wash basin, the only filter he owned. Tala watched from the shade of a half-standing wall, braids swinging as she eyed every motion, weighing routine for danger. He left the basin on the cellar steps, backed off 4 paces. She climbed, filled a tin cup, drank slow. In the bright, her face showed new details. Soot embedded in laugh lines no laughter had carved, faint burn along the jaw that must have blistered the night of the fire. When she finished, she lifted the basin, tipped it toward him, silent thanks, then descended again, chain shirt whispering from the knife at her belt. Ash drifted on every breath of wind. It settled into hair, pores, dreams. They worked through it. Eli stripped charred shingles from the kitchen corner, tossing them in a pile where sparks could no longer find fuel. He pried loose nails, straightened each on a stone, set them in a wooden cigar box, future bones for new joists. Tala appeared beside him without sound, carrying burnt planks cut to stove length. She stacked them in neat cords, saving what would warm them when nights sharpened. When he lifted a beam too wide for one man, she braced the far end, shoulders taut. No word, only shared breath, hitching together as wood moaned from its charred cradle. They rolled it free, propped it on stone blocks for sawing. Afternoon glare softened to copper. Eli dug broken glass from the doorway, bare hands bleeding shallow cuts. Tala squatted beside him, tore a strip from her singed vest lining, wrapped his palm tight. Not firm, fingers brushed a heartbeat's length longer than necessity. He met her gaze for the first time without caution. Something settled there. Start of permission. Evening. They lit a fire outside, sparks swarming into dusk. Rain lingered for 3 days, sweeping across the blackened valley in ragged sheets. Each dawn, Eli walked the perimeter, counting how many patch boards stayed true. Most held, a few wept thin lines of water that Tala caught in clay bowls, saving every drop the desert would later demand. By noon of the 4th day, the clouds shredded, leaving air scrubbed and bright. Steam floated from the charred beams. It smelled of creosote and something almost sweet. New sap boiling inside half-living wood. They started with the kitchen, a rectangle of scorched stone that still remembered bread. Eli pried roof stumps free. Tala hauled them to a growing heap that would one day become fence posts. Where timber had burned through rafters, she wedged scavenged tin at an angle. Elias nailing from above while she braced from below, two pulses tapping the same rhythm. When heat climbed, they broke under the lone mesquite. Tala unwrapped half a prickly pear pad, roasted in last night's coals. Eli poured well water over the pulp, turning seeds and pink juice into something like soup. They ate straight from the knife blade, careful, silent. A shard of green fruit stuck to Eli's beard. Her finger brushed it away before he could move. Touch brief, shockingly gentle. He met her eyes, found no apology, only fact. They shared this space now, in its small intimacies. Thunderheads returned without lightning, spilling another afternoon flood. Water sluiced off the new tin roof, carving gullies at the foundation. Tala sloshed outside, bare feet anchoring in mud, dragging broken stovepipe to channel runoff downhill. Eli plunged shoulder deep into the stream, stacking flat rocks into a collar to crown the well. Mud sucked at boots. Scar on his forearm split open, mixing rust blood with soil. At dusk, rain quit, leaving silence so vast their own breathing startled them. Eli rinsed his cut in cool well water. Tala dabbed the wound with sage ash, wrapped it in the last strip of clean cloth. When lightning finally flared miles away, it illuminated her face, tired, streaked, quietly triumphant. Inside, ember glow flickered on fresh patched walls. Eli produced a bent harmonica, long silent. He blew a slow chord, thin, cracked, but music all the same. Tala listened, then hummed a three-note answer, low in her throat, an Apache lull before storms. Harmonica bent to match her pitch. Their rough duet floated upward, slipped through gaps into night. Mid-song, she reached toward the rafters, finger tracing the outline of an ember-scarred beam. Ba-ko, she whispered, the Apache word for heel. He repeated it, clumsy. She smiled, the first full curve since they met, and repeated the word once more, slower, gifting it. In the morning, sunlight spilled through holes no longer gaping, but framed, ready for glass. Eli measured lengths of salvaged sash. Tala etched lines with a charcoal nub for him to saw. By night they installed a single pane above the sink. Water from the well glimmered in its reflection. Their faces appeared side by side, surprised. Later she produced a pouch of maize seed, kernels pale gold. She placed half in his palm, kept half. He understood. Both must plant, else crop might favor only one heart. They walked beyond the skeleton barn, found soil the rain had softened. Together they pressed kernels into earth still warm from afternoon sun, sealing each pocket with thumbprint signatures. She spoke again, softer. Ducky G. Tomorrow. He answered with the strange harmonica note, pulling a new tune out of battered reeds. She laughed. The sound startled a lizard into the brush. Night settled gentle, carrying the scent of wet adobe and sap. Inside, the knife and key glinted side by side. Outside, planted seeds slept under damp crust, waiting for morning heat. Eli banked the fire, glanced at Tala wrapped in blanket against the wall. Rain no longer meant ruin. Water, roof, seed, song, each piece stitched ash into shelter. He whispered the word she'd taught him. Ba-ko, felt it pulse against the rafters like a new beam set true. Sleep came without smoke this time, carrying only the soft percussion of drops sliding from freshly mended eaves. The moon rose thin as a saw blade, cutting slow across the cloudless dark. Inside the half-rebuilt ranch house, fire murmured small and content. Beams no longer groaned with every gust. Tala slept near the hearth, arm curved over the maize pouch, as though guarding tomorrow's harvest in her dreams. Eli sat at the window, whittling a handle for the new pump lever, letting cedar curls pile at his boots. A sound snapped the quiet. Hoof on gravel, muffled by distance but certain. He stilled his knife. A second hoof fall, soft metallic jangle, then whispered voices drifting in on the dry wind. Eli nudged Tala's shoulder. She woke at once, hand brushing the knife hilt nailed on the wall, then pausing, edge turned inward, pact of trust. He shook his head, held up two fingers. Strangers? Maybe three. She slipped to the cellar hatch without a word. He crossed to the door, lifted the Spencer from its hooks. Lantern glow outside wobbled across the yard. 3 riders approached, 2 broad-shouldered men in trail-dusted dusters, and between them a narrow figure clutching a folder of papers. The men's horses sweated under double loads. Empty saddlebags swung against flanks like hungry mouths. Eli stepped onto the porch, rifle resting easy, muzzle angled at dirt. The tallest rider reined in. Evenin', name's Rusk. His grin carried the glint of tin badge, though no law backed it. You're squatting on Heartline land. We're here to reclaim. Eli said nothing. The middle rider, a man with a scar splitting his lip, produced a folded bill of sale, edges brittle from heat. Heartline heirs sold us this square mile, he drawled, thumb tapping the signature line. Rusk leaned forward, lantern hissing. That $5 deed you got? Worth ash. Pack up and ride out by dawn. Wind brushed sparks off the chimney. From the cellar, a floorboard creaked. A mouse or a heartbeat. Eli's jaw tightened. He remembered timber splintering in flame. A family lost to someone else's claim. Not again. He lowered the rifle muzzle a hair. Enough to speak through posture rather than barrel. House burned, he rasped. I rebuilt. Water's ours now. A crop's in the ground. Scar lips spat. Ground's Heartline. Crop's Heartline. He swung down, boots puffing dust, hand resting on revolver butt. Trespass ends tonight. Tala's voice rose from the doorway behind Eli. Quiet but steady. Which Heartline? The riders jerked at the unexpected sound. She stepped into lantern light, maize pouch in hand, eyes hard as obsidian. From the pouch she drew a charred tin locket, flicked it open. Inside, a miniature deed from 1871 bore Apache script beside the name Matthias Heartline, the original owner, her great-grandfather's sworn friend. My family worked this land under bond, she said, accent roughened by disuse yet sharp. Bond unbroken. She pressed a second paper flat against Scarlip's chest, a notarized note recovered from the cellar trunk, signed by Matthias. In event of my death, Cellar and well passed to Tala's bloodline, for their guardianship keeps the water alive. Rusk's grin faltered. Legal or not, the stamp glowed red in lantern light. Neighbors might talk, a marshal could ask. Noise was bad for men like Rusk. Scarlip's fingers twitched near his gun. Eli pivoted, rifle rising to hip. Silence thickened, gunpowder hanging unburned in night air. Finally Rusk exhaled, forced a laugh that sounded like a dry hinge. Paper wars bore me. We'll confer with the county. He nudged his horse backward. Scarlip hesitated, eyes on Tala's steady stare, then mounted. They turned, hooves crunching gravel, lanterns swinging until darkness swallowed their retreat. Only dust and the faint smell of horse sweat lingered. Eli closed the gate chain, watched dust settle. Inside, Tala laid the locket and deed on the crate, hands trembling only after the danger passed. Eli set the rifle beside the knife on the wall, steel beside steel, both at rest. He poured 2 cups of well water, handed her one, fingers brushed, steadying. Fire popped. Outside an owl hooted, claiming quiet again. Tala folded the old deed, tucked it into a fresh oilcloth sleeve. Guardian, she murmured, tapping the seal. Eli nodded. Both of us. They stepped onto the porch. Stars crowded the sky, bright as embers flung from a blacksmith's hearth. Below, corn leaves rustled under mild wind, 1,000 small affirmations. Eli spoke first. Tomorrow we finish the barn roof. Tala answered with the faintest smile, the storm scar still on her cheek catching starlight. She opened her palm, revealing 1 maize seed saved from planting, pressed it into his hand. Promise sealed. Barn timbers waited in silhouette. Water glimmered in the half-moon. The land almost healed, exhaled. Inside, the knife and rifle rested side by side, tools now of building, not warning. Outside, 2 sets of footprints turned from the gate back toward the house, where dawn would soon slide through patched windows and find them still standing. Guardians of ashes turn soil. If this stand for shared ground resonated, tap subscribe, leave a like, and tell us in the comments which spark. The Cellar Pact, the Stormwork, or the Midnight Claim struck deepest. Your words light the next story's fire.